Google wants people to use their tools. I just was typing YouTube into LinkedIn. If you want to be a creator in the creator economy, if you want to do this as your job, you can't half-ass it.
The creator economy has so much more to it outside of just the content creators that we know and love. People like managers and producers and lawyers and directors and many, many more professions outside of just those make up a vast majority of what we call the creator economy. And this doesn't even get to the people that actually produce the content, people like cinematographers and lighting directors and audio engineers, and there's so many more that we could talk about. And that is where this podcast comes in. Welcome to The Creative Block, which is a digital neighborhood where people can talk about what it's like and what it takes to work full-time in the creator economy. My name is Nick Friend, and I've been working in the creator economy in one way or another for about 15 years now. My career started in late 2009 and early 2010, working in film and video and commercial and television production. And I've been in the same industry ever since, and it has evolved into many different versions since that time. My guest this week is one of my coworkers and also one of my closest friends, Alex Harman. He works as an account director for some of the largest YouTube channels that cover pop culture. Now, for various different reasons, we don't actually mention the actual channel names, mainly based on privacy. But what we do talk about is what it takes to oversee such a large presence on the platform, what it takes to actually run those as a business, and what the future looks like for channels of this size on the platform and off. One of the most fascinating parts of this conversation was when we discussed the issue of copyright when centered around pop culture content and the usage rights that are surrounding those things. So without further ado, please enjoy, and welcome to The Creative Block.
My name's Alex Harman. I'm a senior account director at Maiden Network. I guess we'll get into what that means, but it means a lot of different hats are worn.
What sort of responsibilities did you have when you first joined with Maiden Network? First of all, what is Maiden Network for those that don't know?
Yes.
We could talk about that.
Cool. What I tell people, and I don't know if it's the official line, but what I tell people is like we're half agency, half production company, helping folks to create whatever they need in terms of like video production in the like creator economy, which is another kind of complicated term. But
that term by itself is very difficult to like nail down, which is actually one of the reasons that I'm having these conversations with people, is to try to identify it in some sort of way.
So, but the abridged version of creator economy is internet video, right? It's YouTube, social media, it's non-traditional media platforms.
I am curious about the expansion of the creator economy as a whole and how it slots into the actual economy of the US and alternatively like the rest of the world. But it's interesting to like think about that when we're talking on like a more microcosmic world, like just one company or just one job per se. But thinking about that, like how has your background in the creator economy evolved? Like, where did you start with that?
Just like a lot of people with a lot of jobs, I kind of fell into it. I studied film in school. I ran an independent movie theater for a number of years. I worked in film distribution, and that's kind of when I fell into the YouTube space. I was managing a bunch of different YouTube channels that this production company and distribution company owned, that was like distributing low budget, mostly horror films onto YouTube because, it became a non-traditional release place where you could take your entire movie. So you made a low budget film, but you can't get a distributor. And so
that's sort of inherently one of the hardest parts about making movies.
Yeah.
Making the movie is actually not as hard as getting people to watch it.
No, exactly. So a lot of folks were like, well, I don't have a platform. And so we would release their films on the YouTube channel, which was essentially just like a catch-all horror channel. And so you could get your movie out there and we would run ads on it, and that's how they would make the money back. And it was like, oh, cool, this movie that I made, and I had a great passion to make this, I haven't made a single dime off of it, and we helped like put it out there and get it out to the world, and so people could watch it on YouTube for free, but because of the ads that would run, they would make money off of it. So it was a great opportunity for them to get their work out in the world and make a little money when no other avenues were available.
Filmmakers are first and foremost filmmakers, but they do fall into I think they fall into the creator category.
Yeah, of course.
And so when you're working with filmmakers that are now dipping their toes into a world that is run by creators, they then sort of see the value in the creator economy world as filmmakers. And so I'm sure you had a lot of experience. Like, did it take a lot of convincing for filmmakers to get their stuff on? Because it sounds like it was more like they haven't found success prior to this. Let's use this as like a popularity contest and see where we can get.
Yeah, I mean, it was like so many filmmakers who were like, okay, we did a festival circuit, we got it out there, we showed it to a lot of people, but nobody picked it up. You know, there's so many low budget films that are made in a year that get shopped around in festivals, and anything doesn't get picked up, just kind of goes nowhere. And so it didn't take a lot of convincing for folks to be like, okay, well, I have this thing sitting on a hard drive. I love the world to see it. A lot of people put, their hearts and souls into this thing, and it's just, going nowhere. So it wasn't, obviously it's probably disappointing for them to not get a big theatrical release. But at the end of the day, like, these were still tens of thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of people watching their films and getting to experience them, which was really cool in a, non-traditional way, but it's still like eyes on the movie.
That's the biggest thing for me from coming from that world of filmmaking, which was I was more attracted to the idea of somebody watching my film rather than me making money off of the film that was watched.
Yeah.
And I think that was where you tapped into that. And
Yeah.
you said that brought you into the world of horror first and foremost, or maybe not first and foremost, but predominantly it was about horror.
I mean, mainly it brought me into the YouTube sphere because like up until that point, just like everybody else of our, millennial age, sort of like the younger millennial side, like was around when YouTube kicked off. I've thrown videos up on the internet. I've grown up watching, a million different videos, and I've seen like the platform evolve. But this was the first time in a professional sense that I got to see the behind the scenes of like what it takes to actually run a channel and run a network and make money off of it, and all the intricacies that come with that and all the difficulties that come with that. So it wasn't actually part of my job, but the people who were in charge of it that I worked with, didn't really take it super seriously. And so I just took it upon myself to kind of take over. And there's great tools. Like Google wants people to use their tools. And so they offer online courses through their own like teaching things. So it's like I got certified in all of these systems on my own because I was fascinated in it. And then I just kind of took over for these people at that role, which then allowed me to like grow and then seek other opportunities when I was like done working there.
How early on was this? What year was this?
This was 2020.
So not even that long ago.
No, not even that.
This is 4.5 years ago.
Yeah. So this was also January of 2020.
Oh, so this is a COVID job.
Yeah.
This was essentially a COVID.
This was a
side hustle because
yes.
everybody had a side hustle in COVID.
And it was the main gig. I had been like I said, I'd been working at the movie theater for a number of years, and I had wanted to have a more traditional 9-to-5 style job. I loved the theater, but it was also, staying awake until 3 a.m, cleaning up, riding a bike home. It had run its course, and the owner was just like, I really can't afford to pay you all that much, or so I was coming in and doing I was programming on the side, helping out, but I wasn't working full time there anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I had a friend who worked at this company who was like, I'm working in distro. Do you want to come in and help out? And so I was there and started January of 2020.
Perfect timing.
Yes.
Perfect timing.
Of course.
But that brought you into the creator economy as we know it.
Yes.
That was sort of your foray into the world of YouTube.
Yeah. And I got to meet like a bunch of different filmmakers who had learned out of doing this for a little while that like they could actually make more money than trying to go the traditional route, mm-hmm. in terms of like they knew what they had on their hands, and instead of wasting time and money to try to sell it to a distributor or something like that, they could just put it up on the platform and monetize it themselves. So it was really it was a really interesting learning experience, and I fell in love with it because it's like there's that film distribution side of it, but there's also so much more. And when I left that company, I wanted to get further into it. And so when I was looking for new opportunities, straight up, all I was looking for was jobs. That's like, I just was typing YouTube into LinkedIn.
Just whatever job you were looking for, you just it was either a prefix or a suffix of YouTube.
Yeah. I think I was looking for, I think the two were YouTube and Nashville. Cause I had friends out here and I had visited a few times. And like I said, I was kind of over Phoenix and I was like, what can I do? And that's when I stumbled across Made In. Not for the role that I got hired for either. I just applied for a random job that I had no business applying for because it was like a paid media position. So like a media buyer, like running ads.
Yeah.
And I didn't know really anything about that, but I was like, I can figure that part out because I'd know 8 out of the 10 things that they listed as a requirement.
Those were the tools you learned from Google.
Yeah.
So actually, what were the tools? Like how you said Google is really good. You said Google really wants people to use the platform. So they give you the tools to learn how to use it. What were some of the tools that you had to go through? Because that's probably a lot of people don't know that these tools exist.
It was at the time Creator Academy. And then they had like the Google, oh gosh, what's it like? I think it was just called Google certifications where you could go through and do all these different ones. And I think I did all the ones that were for YouTube. And then I went through as I was applying for that paid ads job. I was like, oh, I'll learn how to do Google ads really quick on the side. And, went through and did those too. But, there was
Did Google have tools for that?
Yeah, they had ones for Google ads, all the e-commerce stuff. You could really get in like the analytics, just straight up analytics. They really encouraged people to just use their tools because they wanted more people to utilize that system because it's an ecosystem that they want more and more people to like play in, right?
Sure. It's a selfish thing that they're doing, but it's really good for the people doing it because it's allowing you to learn how to do your job in a more efficient and more effective way.
Yeah, of course.
And it's all on platform.
Exactly. It's just encouraging more people to use their stuff, and it's not gatekeeping by saying, hey, you're going to have to pay this much money or go to an actual building and sit down and take a course over X amount of weeks. It's like they provide you with the study materials, you take the assessments. They last for some of them lasted for a year, some of them lasted for like 2 years, the certifications, and then they expired because, as we know too, all these platforms are always changing. 2 years is a long time for like a product to not change pretty significantly,
especially in the digital world.
Exactly.
There's no reason, like they don't have to come up with a new textbook. There's not a lot of overhead for making a new protocol that they do. So yeah I can imagine that those protocols take a little while.
Yeah, exactly.
So that brought you into Made In Network, and then you, like you said, you didn't actually apply for the job that you have. So what did you end up doing?
So I met with Keith, our COO, and I knew enough. I was spitting out, terminology that I sounded like I knew what I was doing in terms of like the actual platform.
Yes, you were using real life hashtags.
Yeah, and so we had a great meeting, and then he put me in touch with Michael Hardesty, who was in charge of the strategy department, and I met with him, and same thing. We had a great chat. Talked about just the platform in general strategy type, like just spitting out lingo again. And he was like, well, I don't have any room for you, but like, we'll keep you in mind. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll never hear from them again.
Right.
And then I think it was like,
that is a typical line to like, be like, well, that didn't go great.
Oh yeah. Cause I'd already been, going through a bunch of different interviews. So, when you're not going to get it. So I was like, well,
yes.
Great. I got to speak to these folks. They're really interesting, whatever. And then it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I got a call that was just like, actually, we have some big projects in the next couple of months. We'd rather just get someone in now and get you onboarded and trained for like our standard. And then when the work comes, we'll already have you, which was really cool because
it's really cool for them to just not necessarily blindly, but just like very well in advance, just invest in your skill set.
Yeah. And so that was super awesome. And so I got brought on board as a strategist to help out with just a couple of different accounts. And from there, it just continued to grow into more and more roles and responsibilities. And now here we are. Were
those accounts like connected to the niche that you had gotten experience in your previous position when you were doing the whole YouTube, like movies to YouTube transition?
No, not at all.
No.
No, I started off working on brand accounts. So they were major brands who wanted to have an online presence, specifically on YouTube, creating like content for the platform specifically, not advertisements, but fun, like, YouTube style videos that were,
that's sort of what I do now.
Yeah. That was like promoting their products, but also it's a fun YouTube video. And so that's where I started. And it was very heavy in the analytics and the data side. Like everything has to be, working on the brand side. They want to know the numbers. They want to know, why did this one have this CTR versus this CTR? So like lots of A/B testing on thumbnails, making sure that everything went into those videos was like taking the best strategy that we learned from the last 10, and then just putting it into those. So
there's a lot of piling on with data and information and practice and all that stuff.
Yeah. But very quickly, I think everybody learned how big of a nerd I am, and that I was chomping at the bit to work on any of our pop culture channels and with our pop culture clients.
At the time, how many pop culture clients, so to speak, did we actually have? Because that was 3 years ago.
Yeah, I guess
2.5, let's say.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you want to define it, because we had some, cooking clients who, cooked specific dishes from television and film, and some that focused specifically on TV and movie reviews, video game reviews. So,
well, why don't we define it now? Let's just say, if we define the pop culture niche as anything that is either reactive or proactive to media. So any sort of music, movies, TV shows, or otherwise like a visual medium. Let's say that's pop culture. Because I don't necessarily think the food niche is a pop culture niche. It might be popular and it might be part of that culture, but I don't think that that's pop culture per se.
Sure.
I think anything that has to do with media, both popular and cultish, it's probably not the best way to say that, but like cult classic type content. I feel like that is the pop culture niche that you found yourself in.
Yeah. I mean, 3 major ones for sure that I can think of off the top of my head that were like our like flagship ones focused on, television, film, video games, and some that then branched out to have their other side channels, wanting to like grow essentially. But I think it was like 3 major ones that we had at the time.
What sort of subscriber count did they have at the time of you joining the teams?
They were all in the millions. I think the biggest one was around 10 million.
And this was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. Right.
And this is your first tier 1, so to speak, YouTube channel that you're going into, and you're starting with 10 million subscribers. Yeah. In terms of, if we think of like a YouTube channel as a business, that's a really large business to jump into. So I can imagine that like there's probably a lot of difficulties with working with channels that are this size, but also a lot of benefits.
It really depends on every channel is different, right? Every creator is different. Sometimes it's a singular creator, sometimes it's a team, and everybody has different needs. I think that being an established channel, I mean, like some people got on the ground floor, right? Sure. And have been YouTubers since YouTube started, and so they have created this core fan base that they can do no wrong in their eyes, right? And so for those folks who put in, the blood, sweat, and tears over the last decade and a half, however many, like what are we at? It's like 17, 18 years of YouTube at this point. I think for like folks like that, it's very different from a quick, like a fast growth channel, something that popped up and then got an insane amount of subscribers kind of overnight because whatever they've decided to do just really clicks with audience at that time. And so there can be any number of difficulties involved, and that can just be just the cadence. You have 10 million people or 10 million subscribers that want more from you. You're putting out one video a week. That's not enough. They want more. They want 2 videos a week. They want 2 videos a week and shorts. And you have to decide, okay, can I do that from a like workflow perspective. Like, is it logistically feasible to write, shoot, edit, upload, release multiple videos in 1 week? But also from a like personal perspective where it's like, that's a lot of work. I mean, like, I know that
just for a person, that's just a lot to do.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, when you don't work in the industry, like it's easy to say like, well, why don't you just do one more? For some of these folks, it's 40 hours on a script. It's, you know, a 6-hour shoot day because there's actually a lot of production. It's not just a camera and a ring light. It's it's an entire set. It is someone behind the camera. It's someone running sound. It's an entire team, and then it can be a sole editor, or it can be a suite of editors depending on like your level of production
and depending on delivery expectations. Like, when is this video expected? Like, for instance, if you're doing something with a brand, if you're attached to a company that wants to sponsor on a specific piece, that's usually a tightened timeline as opposed to like just independent deliveries for a channel.
Yeah. And so that can be really stressful and draining on folks. I know that a lot of people ramped up production, especially during the pandemic, because no one was allowed to do anything.
The only thing you were allowed to do was be on the internet.
And so a lot of folks got up to that level, you know, putting out more to satisfy a need, and dialing back becomes a really hard prospect because you've created an expectation from the audience that you are going to put something out. And so if you don't, you run the risk of alienating your audience because you're not, you know, providing them with their thing, because it's really interesting, because I'm sure that this is true of all like media and fan culture, but it is like there's a difference with the internet where, you know, you're right there. You can just voice your opinion directly on a video, and most of the time the person who made the video is gonna look at that. And so, you know, I don't have that kind of level of like, you know, being able to just like get in touch with Chris Evans, right? And be like, hey Chris, I don't know about that last one, but I can put out a video and someone or several someones can be like, this sucks, like do better. And, you know, when that's so easy for people to do, it's easy for people to see that and also be really discouraging. And that leads to burnout. You know, all those factors can lead to burnout, which is a bummer, because then you get creators who are like, I'm done. So that
has happened a lot in recent history, because like right now it's you know, mid-October 24. Over the past 6 months to a year, there have been a lot of like massive channels that have said, I think that's it.
Yeah. So those can be, you know, some of the huge difficulties. You know, you're just, and just to name a few, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, every channel has its own workflow. There's nuances.
I think the one thing that probably hits the hardest in terms of like the difficult part of working in pop culture YouTube specifically is copyright issues, because I'm sure working on pop culture content, it comes across probably with every upload, I would guess.
Not every single one, because it really depends. And so do you want to do like a quick like what that is on YouTube? Because like
I'm curious about what it actually takes to like when YouTube says, hey, you can't do this because it doesn't belong to you.
Yeah.
Like, what happens next?
So okay, we can take a quick step back to just see the bigger picture. So YouTube has this really fascinating tool called Content ID. And so it's essentially, if you are a studio, a music publisher, you know, TV producer, whoever, and you own a piece of content, you can upload a reference file to the Content ID system via your own CMS, or you can pay someone who will manage your rights for you. And it has this reference file. And on the back end of like a content manager account, you can say, hey, if anyone in this place, in this territory, you know, US and Canada or worldwide, uses any of this video or this song or whatever, take the revenue from it, or block the video, or split the revenue off. Like,
so it's all built into this one tool.
So it's all built into this one tool, which is fascinating. It has these multiple levels, so you can be very, like I said, like very granular. Say you only own the rights to a thing in a certain territory. You say, okay, I own the rights to it. So if someone uploads it and it's in that territory, it flags it. And then there's just several options. It will take the revenue from it, so your video can exist unhindered. And ads will run on it, but the revenue from those ads will then go to the person that owns the content versus to you, the creator.
Sure. I've run into that with some of my own uploads. If I, like, for instance, there was a video I put out. I used some like a song from a band, Sylvanesso.
Yeah.
And I just used it as a scratch track to sort of get the pace of the video. I liked it so much that I just uploaded it. And almost immediately, YouTube says, hey, we don't think this is yours. We think this is theirs. And we know we're right. So you're not going to get any money from this. And I sort of just said, that's fine. I just want this video to be online. And that was sort of the end of that, which I think is the more mild version of what you're talking about. I feel like that's probably like the tier, like the bottom level issue of copyright. Like, so does it get more complicated from that?
Yeah, it gets incredibly more complicated and increasingly more strict or aggressive. They can block your video completely. Or if they own it in X amount of territories, like, you'll get something that says it's partially blocked. So they'll say, hey, your video's uploaded and it's public, but in 230 of 247 territories, no one can see it because ownership exists in those territories.
Yeah.
So you get it in random spots. Or in the most extreme situations, it's completely blocked. You have no recourse. Well, you do have recourse, but it's blocked. And so you can do, one of two things. You can take down your video, chop that piece out, and re-upload it. And hopefully you don't have anything else that gets in trouble or flagged. Or you can dispute it and say, hey, no, I have the right to do this. And there's several different options. When you do that, like dispute, it's, you can say like, no, this is mine. This is an original piece of content and your thing is mistaken. You can say it's fair use. I've used this under, the fair use doctrine and I believe that I have a strong argument for it. And it allows you to write out within like 1,000 characters why. Or you can say, no, I have a license for this. I understand that it's flagged, but I do have a license and you can include your information like, I got this,
I got this from this person with under this work order number.
I have this song licensed through UPM and it's through this person. Yeah. And then at that point they have 30 days to respond, in which they can say, no, actually you don't have the right to this and reject it, or they can release it. If nothing happens in those 30 days, it expires and then your video is fully monetized, fully viewable, but it's 30 days.
That's a lot to have to deal with, especially when you have the demand of 2 uploads a week.
Yeah. And sometimes not just one claim on a video. You can have infinite, say you're talking.
Can you really?
Yeah.
If you do a movie about one, or if you do a YouTube video about one movie,
it can keep claiming it. Typically you'll have 1 or 2 main claims on it.
You'll get like a Warner Brothers claim.
It will say we have
Sony Music claim.
We found this piece for this, and it's usually like a small segment and then a segment, especially if you include the dialogue or any music from it. It picks it up more easily. But if you're doing like the best horror movies of 2024, and you do clips from however many movies, you can get however many claims. And so
if you do 50 best movies of the year, you could theoretically get 50 or more claims on one upload.
Yeah. And so then you'd have to dispute all of those, and all it takes is one person to say no, and they take all of the revenue from your whole video.
It seems like a bit of a gamble for that kind of content.
It is.
So how do you think like channels that do that, that are that large, like how do they keep going?
It's a combination of tenacity
Mhm.
and fighting those, because a lot of people do, unless you're just uploading the full movie unabridged, you do have a pretty good fair use claim if
Mhm.
you're offering commentary or building upon this material. Say you're breaking down what happened in a movie, what you would do differently, or just straight up talking about any particular segment of this film and analyzing it. I mean, that's, you know, it's analysis. It's, you're critiquing it. It's a pretty good argument for fair use.
Yeah, it's pretty clear, like when the content is being viewed, like why there is
Yeah.
usage of other people's stuff. It
Yeah.
makes sense because it's a direct commentary on that stuff. So maybe just for clarification, maybe define fair use in the way that is like pertinent to your experiences.
Yeah. So, I mean, for like on YouTube specifically, and when talking about like pop culture, fair use is just using somebody else's like trademarked third party IP material that you don't own, but for your own purposes. So it is, my video that is a review of Joker 2. And
Mhm.
in it, I have clips from the trailer because it's not out on VOD yet, and I don't have access to have that. But I have clips from the first movie and maybe other Batman films. But it's all in the spirit of reviewing this film and talking about it and illustrating my point through clips from different films.
Yeah, and let's say, for instance, like your point is like the Joker's actually the good guy. Maybe that's just the point of the video, like
Sure.
whatever. Doesn't it's hypothetical, doesn't matter. But so that is the reason that you're pulling from this content because it's directly associated with the theory of the video.
Yeah, that you've created.
Yes.
And that's the biggest point, is it's not, hey, here's somebody else's work and I just want to show it on my page and make money from it. It is, I've put in work to transform this original content into something new, and therefore, because I've transformed it, it is fair use. But the problem with fair use is there's no guidelines. It's all a gray area. So it is really up to discretion of the person who owns the content. And sometimes people will just release it without questions asked. Sometimes they say no, and you have to escalate it and then it gets into like an actual legal proceeding, which no one wants to have to deal with. Or sometimes you just give up and do something else.
Considering like the size of the channels that are managed by you and worked on by you, what sort of impact do those channels actually have on the creator economy and, by the transitive property, the economy as a whole? Because they are massive.
Yeah.
And they generate a lot of buzz. They generate a lot of, I'm assuming, income. They obviously generate a huge following, especially considering that a lot of them have been around as long as they have been. So what sort of impact do those YouTube channels have on like the size that they have?
Well, it's interesting because like traditional media, you hear this from traditional media saying like the movie theater's dying, TV's dead, sort of thing, and it's not true. But I do think that like traditional media and new digital media is always evolving, and so YouTube, TikTok, any like Instagram, all these places, all these platforms that allow video content are trying to compete with traditional media for the attention of the key demographics, right? And so when you have a traditional media outlet, be it trying to get a TV show off the ground or trying to make a film or something that is so difficult, the barrier to entry is so high that so many other people are going a different route that they're going into these. So there's incredibly talented people going into the creator economy that says like, I can do this and I can do this the way I want to, and create something that I want to create, and without having to, listen to anyone and so I can make all this money. It allows them to build something that then is like their own, and then their own in a way that it becomes a business and they become a brand, and they have something that's very marketable
Mm-hmm.
because they are so earnest in their investment in their content, what they're putting out, that is very attractive to advertisers, right? Like in the last 10 years, we saw such a huge boom of, direct to consumer like brands really advertising on, maybe stepping away from traditional advertising, print, radio spots and the like, to want to advertise with influencers and folks on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And because they have those massive audiences that you say like, okay, the average video gets 1 million views in 30 days, let's say. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And if
that's 1 million potential customers for brand X that's attached to channel Y.
And so it allows these brands to target very specific audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many different niches all over the internet.
Yeah, there are as many niches as there are ideas for videos.
And so it allows them to say, hey, like, I really want to target people that are into rock climbing that are, I don't know, 18 to 35, right? And they can find someone who has a channel, who has an audience that are exactly that and work with them. Whereas like before it maybe was a more shotgun approach. You say, okay,
spray and pray, so to speak.
Exactly. And so that's incredibly interesting because I think that market has probably grown significantly over the last couple of years, and especially during the pandemic when, again, everyone just had the internet. And so it's like, we have these different brands that are advertising that. So I think that became a really lucrative piece of it. And then as well as, these tools, these brands, and these platforms are all like, they want people to stay on them. And so they're trying to encourage creators to create more. And in such, they're selling advertisements on their material. Their videos are getting a lot of ads on them. And in turn, that makes money for a creator who then is incentivized to continue to create, content for their platform so that they can add advertisements to it.
There is, I think it's more of like a moral issue of serving the algorithm versus serving the original reason why a person or a company wants, well, we need a company, but a person wants to start making content on a platform like YouTube or platforms like TikTok and Instagram and whatever. Because it gets a little muddy in terms of the authenticity of the content versus the success of the content. Like sometimes those get separated, whereas the hopeful part of me wants the success to come from the authenticity. That's not always true. So how do channels of the size that you have to deal with navigate sort of serving the algorithm versus serving the creativity of the original idea?
Well, I think there's two different types of creators. And maybe it's a generalization, but for the sake of this conversation, there's two different types of creators. There's creators that create evergreen content, which can live on the platform for forever. It's not hot topic news. It isn't the hottest new trend. It is just they have a thing and they are going to be focusing on it. And maybe sometimes it goes into something that's more brand new and contemporary, but more often than not, it's like they have their niche and they're focusing on this is what I want to be doing. And I'm going to be creating content about this. And then the other type of creator is the reaction, the contemporary, the type of creator that partakes in, okay, this new movie came out, I have to release a review video about it within 24 hours, right? Because that's what people are going to be looking for. And they're really just trying to game the SEO of it all to be able to get pushed to the top of the list and say, hey, people who are looking for this one specific thing, I have that, mine's the best, and then move on to the next thing. And so, yes, they capitalize and get the views off of something that's brand new, but in a week's time, no one's going to be watching that because nobody cares anymore, and you'll have to move on to the next thing. And for a lot of people, that's how they get in and grow significantly.
Yep.
But I don't know that that's like where a loyal fan base lies. I think the loyal fan base lies with, creator type 1, where it is, hey, I'm going to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch my video on Friday when it comes out. You can watch it in 6 months, and guess what? You're going to get the same level of enjoyment out of it.
Yep.
Or you can watch it in 6 years.
And it's still going to be entertaining and just as valuable from an entertainment point of view.
And I think from a longevity perspective, that's going to lead to a healthier channel, less burnout from a creator.
I think it's also probably a healthier audience and fan base too.
Yes. Yeah, because you have such a active catalog where people can learn who you are and go back and maybe figure out those inside jokes because, episode 1 had, this joke, or episode 50 had this one joke, and people are going off about it in the comments, but you have no idea what it is. So it incentivizes you to be part of that and join the club, essentially.
It's sort of a slow growth mentality towards working on a channel.
Yeah.
I heard an interesting quote that sort of exemplifies that concept. There was a video released by a creator named James Pumphrey. He used to work on Donut Media. He moved away and started his own channel called Speed, and he just does a deep dive on a brand that interests him. And the brand that he was talking about was Stussy. And the founder of Stussy said, you don't start with a brand, you start with a project, and the brand is the reward. And it sounds like that's really what makes a YouTube channel more valuable to its audience. Is it's a project that became a brand because of what it was, not because what it wanted to be.
I think that that's very accurate. I think that if you want continued life and growth, it's really going to come down to how the audience reacts to you as the creator. In my experience, channels that are faceless entities, while maybe successful, have to work a lot harder than one that has a host that has endeared himself to his audience, that is great, to just a great personality, and people then become more invested not only in your content but in you as a creator, as opposed to, oh, I'm here to watch this review about this movie. Sure, this guy's talking, but I don't care really. I just want to hear what he has to say. I don't care about him, the person.
Yes, I think it's one of my favorite things that creators can do is be fans of their fans.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what you're talking about, is being a fan of the people that are fans of you, because that's the driving force behind the success or failure of a channel, is how many people are loyal to that channel.
Yeah.
There's this theory of the loyal 1,000. If you only need 1,000 actually loyal fans, and you can have a successful brand, company, channel, whatever platform. And that only exists by making authentic content for those fans. But you also don't know who those 1,000 fans are. So you got to do it for everybody. So it's just, it seems like a sort of a no-brainer to just be as authentic as you possibly can and serving the people that are already paying attention rather than the people you want to pay attention. You got to serve your fans, not your potential fans.
Yeah. And I'm on the internet all day, every day. And I have a very different perspective than a lot of folks, but I can say with absolute certainty that if you're inauthentic, people can smell a rat. Read the comments on some videos and people will be like, nope. This seems what are you doing differently? What's going on? But new person, new producer, new writer, what's going on? Oh, something's changed. And people
can smell something different.
I mean, people are very perceptive, and not to say that you can't ever change, because you should.
No, of course not.
Change is great, and you cannot grow without changing.
No, that is the nature of being a creative person. So your creativity is always evolving from day zero.
Yeah, but if you're inauthentic, if you're doing a reaction channel because you see everybody else doing it and you're not actually into reacting to content, people will smell a rat.
Yeah,
and you have to find that thing that you're so incredibly passionate about that you can talk to a complete stranger about for hours and do that.
Exactly. That's the nature of creating content. You have to be interested in what you're making in order for the thing that you're making to be interesting.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. What do you think of the idea of, because a lot of pop culture channels are not necessarily like nameless or faceless, but they are deeply driven by voiceover and B-roll and cutaways from the films and videos and YouTube, other YouTube channels for that matter, that they're using for their own content. So it does get pretty heavily like non-faced and non people driven.
Yeah, I mean, they exist, they get views, but the thing is, like, using views and subscribers as your only metric for success they can be very false, right? As someone who works behind the scenes, and like, if you haven't been able to like look behind this, like peek behind the curtain of a YouTube video,
check under the hood.
Yeah, the analytics that you get are insane. I mean, like, I'm such a data nerd, and you can get so specific with all the data for a specific video or a specific channel.
How specific could you get? Like, walk us through an example of how specific.
I mean, it depends on like what you're looking for.
Right.
Like, you can say, okay, I put out this video. Where did the majority of the people watch it from? You can get all your geographical data, right?
Down to the city?
Not in some instances, yes. But in a lot of the times you can say like, okay, 50% of my audience is in the US, X amount is in, and it lists the top 50 territories, right?
Wow.
And then you can say, okay, well, what kind of device are they watching on a phone? Are they watching on a TV? Are they watching on a tablet? Are they watching on a computer? Okay, what operating system are they running on? Are they running on Apple? Are they running on Android?
And this is broken down from a percentage standpoint, right?
Yeah. And you can see all this information, and so it's really fascinating. And here's the thing: is like, the majority of the ad dollars that are generated on YouTube are from like, like US, Canada, UK, Australia. A lot of Scandinavian countries have like high CPMs, whereas like there are other countries where you may have very high viewership, but you don't. And I think that a lot of the like AI generated straight up just stealing material is viewed a lot by viewers in parts of like the world that are just trying to watch a movie that maybe they can't see because they don't have access to it.
I wouldn't have even ever thought about that.
Yeah. And so you see huge views in territories where the CPM is a cent, where you're getting so that means you're getting 1 cent off of 1,000 views.
Yeah.
As opposed to,
that's not commercially viable.
Yes.
Right.
As opposed to having, the majority of your viewership in the US, where your CPM might be great. And so
what would be a good CPM compared to 1 cent per 1,000?
I mean, some averages like that I see are, it depends on the type of content and how commercially viable it is.
This is not to say that this is what anybody should expect.
But for a pop culture channel, like anywhere between $8 and $10 feels like pretty like normal.
Right, but think about that as the spread from like a non-CPM oriented territory to a CPM oriented territory. That's a huge spread. That's
exactly
I think that's like 1,000% difference.
Yeah. So it's like, and then you can have subscribers that are bots, right? So it's like you look at these things and you say like, okay, this channel from an outside perspective is a success, but it might not be a success. And so I would say like the human element is the most important element, because like if you want to grow in the places, like if you want to create content as a business, not just as like a hobby, if you want to create it as a business and that be your source of income, then the human element is incredibly important still. Like, and I'm not here to say that like there aren't, generative tools that can help like add to your workflow, but they certainly not replace your workflow. Tools are helpful, but they're not, again, replacing the human element. And I think that that's like the most important thing probably about the creator economy, that like getting back to like the bigger picture here is like, it's the human element. It's the earnestness. You can't, if you want to be a creator in the creator economy, if you want to do this as your job, you can't half-ass it. It is so incredibly hard to break in. There's an insane statistic, like when you're going through that, you know, creator academy thing, and it's probably changed now to be even higher, that it's like there's something like 1 billion hours of footage uploaded to YouTube every single day.
Yeah.
It's probably more now that there's shorts and a million other things that are
Yeah.
like, since I've gone through that 3 years ago, which is crazy that it
may have doubled.
Yeah. Or that was per hour, and I'm just completely wrong. And so you have to stand out, and just kind of doing a thing on the side is not the way that you're going to. And like, and again,
you have to be devoted to your own passions as if it were a real like job that somebody is paying you for, even though you're not being paid for this. And that shouldn't be the goal, to get paid for creatorship, though it's not unrealistic to hope for that. That should never be, I don't think that should be like the reason you're creating something, which we talked about already.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it can be aspirational.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that having it exist, putting, you know, your soul into it, and then, oh, this thing took off. This can now be my job, is an incredibly amazing prospect that not a lot of people get, because to get there takes a lot.
Yep.
And
I mean, sometimes it takes more than 10 years to quote unquote get there.
Sure. And I mean, like, and even from a just like, I want to make money off of YouTube standpoint, like, there, you can't just upload a video and it's like, okay, now I'm making money. Like, YouTube also has like benchmarks in place that you have to meet before you can even get accepted into their program where you're making money.
Yeah. And that's not to say that you can't upload one video and be incredibly popular off of the bat.
Yeah.
But there has to be a level of sustainability attached to your modus operandi, like how you make content, and your cadence of uploading content to whatever platform you choose. It has to be sustainable, and it has to have legs.
Yeah.
Because just to go back to what you talked about, burnout is a very real thing. If you do too much too fast, you are going to be disillusioned with the stuff that you're doing. Yeah. But I want to make sure that like we talk about this in a positive way.
Sure.
I don't want to like discourage people from being creators. So I did want to ask you, like, in a perfect world, what are some changes that you would want to see to the creator economy to make it better than it is now? And how would you go about suggesting those changes?
It's tough because I have no leverage over any of these things. Like, with all of us, we work in other people's sandboxes, right? On YouTube, it's Google sandbox, the same thing with TikTok and all these other places. And so it's really hard to even think about like changing the landscape of a thing that you have absolutely no say in. But I think like encouraging people to create for the sake of creating versus the sake of like becoming a sensation or a star or something is so like, rather than changing a platform or changing like the creator economy, it is just like doing a thing because you want to do a thing versus like doing a thing because you're hoping maybe you get discovered or it takes off, because that creates a lot of like disingenuine or like just garbage content. And it's like,
there's a chance that what you're creating for other people is just trash. Yeah.
So, and like sometimes you get, you know, lucky, and that's amazing. I love a person that can have one thing and then turn like one, you know, Walmart yodeling kid has a whole career because somebody took a video of it. Like, I mean, maybe he might be an artist in his own right. I have no idea. I don't know anything about this person, but I think it's more important to focus on doing something because you want to do it and not like, God, I hope I accidentally get discovered or I go viral. And because it's dangerous from both like a literal danger perspective, and sometimes people do really stupid things, and from like a burnout mental health perspective where you're just like always trying to one up or do, you know, whatever thing, and it's like
you got to protect that part of yourself. And you have to know that you need to protect it.
Yeah, so I don't think I really answered your question super well, but
Well, I think if you could change something in the creator economy, it would be the overall outlook of why create.
yeah,
Sounds like what you're getting
or
at.
of what would be creators. I think that it's like just for any artistic expression, it's like do it because you want to be doing it, not because you think that it will, I don't know, like do something for you.
Yeah.
I think that like
do it because you want to do it, not because you don't want to do other things.
Yeah. Like I don't want to have a real job.
Right.
So I want to hopefully go viral and then get picked up to have my own podcast and whatever thing off of one viral moment. It's like it could work out.
It might.
But for every, for the one person it works for, there's a million people that aren't, going to get anything from it. So it's like if you want to jump into the space and be in like the public eye and a creator, influencer type way, like
choose the keyword you want to use.
I would just say like, do it responsibly.
Or do it slowly.
Or I mean like slowly maybe, but like do it because you want to be doing it and do it in a way that's not going to ruin your life or hurt those around you. Because it seems like too many people have like tried that or gotten really popular really quickly, and then it's just like,
it's like, oh, that's all you. This is the end of the road for you right now.
Cool.
Like there's nothing left here.
Back to your job, or you burned a bridge or something. So,
what is your favorite thing about the creator economy?
I think my favorite thing about the creator economy is that,
and I mean like the whole creator economy.
Yeah.
So anything from YouTubers to like people that paint portraits at people's weddings to the programmers at film festivals, like, because all of that I think is part of the creator economy because it has to do with creatorship. So what comes to mind as some of your favorite things?
I mean, I'll stick to what I know because I don't, I can't speak to, your painters or, any of that stuff. But with what we do, working in digital media, it's always evolving, right? Like we talked about this, like you have to get your new certifications every couple
2 years at max.
Yeah, at max, because the systems that we're working in are always growing and changing. I took this like emerging digital media course in college that was so life-changing, where it's just like the internet and this new technology that exists around it, and like digital creation, be it music, video, whatever, is never going to stop evolving. That cat's out of the bag. And working in it is amazing because that means there's no time for stagnation. From a behind the scenes side, like you and I, working in production, working behind the scenes, helping out folks create, and from an actual like in front of the camera perspective, it's like all like the last couple of years, green screen technology and all these other things became so like easily and readily available for so cheap for people that like
some of the point where you don't even need a green screen anymore.
Some of the craziest things that were like prohibitively expensive and could only be done by a studio 10-15 years ago, now like a 12-year-old can do with his iPhone. And like that's what I love, is that like working in an industry where things will never stop evolving, and that's going to consistently challenge me and the people that I'm working with to reset our expectations and keep pushing the envelope is what I love the most, because it makes for something that's new and exciting and sometimes frustrating, but it's always like you have to grow and you have to change. And I think that like stagnation just leads to, I don't know, being a terrible person. Not terrible person, but like, it's not healthy. And so having to constantly be shifting your perspective and learning something new is like,
comfort can really be lethal in that regard.
So that's it.
Got to keep learning.
Yeah.
Alex, thanks so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Nick.